This is the Slots and Sockets podcast, episode number 95. I am one of your hosts, IRD Moose, and my partner in crime,
Racing Penguin.
Racing Penguin. So we've got a drive and talk. We're doing a Top Gear style episode
Top
today.
Gear style, yep.
Classic Top Gear, not the new crap after they
yes, the good stuff.
Jeremy. Wow, I'm drawing a blank on his name now. Good
Jeremy
grief.
Clarkson.
Yes. I even watch his other shows, Clarkson's Farm.
Which is a great one.
It's
highly recommended.
Rest in peace, Rooney.
I know.
Yeah. So we got an interesting show for you this evening. A few different topics, but the first one I think we want to start out with is I kind of have a feeling Microsoft's regretting their choice to shove AI down our throats because everybody's calling them Microslop.
Well, I mean, they sort of deserve it because, in all honesty, Microsoft really, I mean, from a user perspective, they've really kind of done a really bad job with Windows 11.
Well,
I think that there's a lot of argument for people who are on Windows 10 because they sit back and say, yeah, you want me to go to Windows 11? That thing's a pile.
Hey guys, we still got security updates over here. Oh, dude.
I know. But see, and the thing is that there was some push that was faster, and for the longest time in gaming, it was faster.
Yep.
And it wasn't until recently. Now, I think one of the reasons that we're seeing the speed improvements in games is mainly because developers stopped writing code specific for Windows 10 and maybe we're working around Windows 11 more than anything else.
But the funny thing, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't go to 25H2. In fact, I actually had to force rollback 25H2 because it was forced onto my desktop. And I'm running Windows 11 Pro, and there's no way it should have forced itself on, but it did. So, that was a fun Thanksgiving, but I'm glad I got rid of it because if you've been watching, all the news the last few weeks, their vibe coded updates have just been breaking stuff left and right. A good example is with the Asus ROG Ally Xbox handheld. Like they've broken their own software with their vibe coded crap updates in Windows 11. And I'm going to hold on to 24H2 as long as I can until either SteamOS drops or I can figure out some more stuff with Bazite because I'm sick and tired of it. I'm tired of having to fight my operating system. I just want something that I can boot up and it just gets out of my way and lets me do what I need to do. Because that's all people in business want. And guess what happened to me today with my work laptop? Microsoft Office just decided to up and close.
Oh, I mean,
just no reason, just closed. Sorry, you were in the middle of writing a document to a customer, but I can't work now because it's vibe coded. Yeah.
I mean, it's bad. I mean, Office. Look, I make the argument that the last time Windows was good is probably Windows 7. Or let me rephrase that. I thought Windows was acceptable was Windows 7.
That's fair.
Windows 10 was okay. I don't think you would ever sit there and say Windows 10 is something that you're going to put on like top 10 operating systems, but I think it's not bad. Windows 11 is bad. And I think one of the things that they're realizing is that if they keep going down this road, they're going to put more and more of their customers and developers into thinking that maybe Linux isn't such a bad thing. Yeah. I mean, Windows 11 has pushed me to be like, well, let's try Bazite. Let's try, all these other Steam, like these Linux distros, trying to find something that doesn't suck.
Yep.
And I think one of the things gamers have got to realize is how many times I'm just waiting for SteamOS.
Hmm.
Man, what that tells you is that it's not thing that like that they think Steam is better. I think they're just sitting there saying that Microsoft has made Windows so bad that they're just hoping that there's something better than Windows.
They're making
And
a free alternative the better option.
I mean, here's the thing. I think from my perspective, if Steam came out and said you can buy Steam OS and it's a $50 license, I'm
Mhm.
buying.
Yeah, same. Even if they're like, oh well, you can get it for free, or you could pay us $50 and we'll give you direct support. I'd be all over that because I'd just be like, all right, guys, I'm going to leverage your support and figure out how I can get my critical apps to run in Steam OS. That's literally my only blocker is getting some of the stuff that doesn't yet run on Linux to run, or having the time to find an equivalent. Like my whole issue is time. And that's the thing. Is like I've spent how many decades using Windows?
I
Um,
think that the tides from a development standpoint are starting to turn.
yeah,
I think
I
that
hope so.
Steam is making it, and I think it's just a matter of time before we actually get an official Steam OS announcement. But look, I think there's why there's so much hype is because people are just tired of the crap with Windows.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's 100% true. So,
Well,
I think the number one topic we have here is how long is it until we can realistically get something that because I think there's probably a lot of truth in the notion that some of the install experience and the ease of use
mhm,
from Windows, um, Linux probably struggles a little bit with some of the distros, not all of them, but some of
yeah.
them.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I had to fight. I had to fight with Bazite for a couple hours to figure out how to get my RGB stuff to work, how to get my graphics drivers fully working, and get fan profiles to work and stuff like that. But if somebody like Valve can simplify that, then there really isn't any need for me to stay with Windows. That's like my whole thing is like if they can get the setup experience as I wouldn't say pain free as installing Windows because there is a lot of pain there. It's just I'm used to it because everything's pre-configured to work with Windows. But I think Microsoft's, or I should say Microslop's executives are starting to see that cracks that they're creating themselves. Because Pavan Davaluri, I probably butchered that. He actually said the feedback we're receiving from our community of passionate customers and Windows insiders has been clear. We need to improve Windows in ways that are meaningful for people. This year, you will see us focus on addressing pain points we hear consistently from customers, improving system performance, reliability, and the overall experience of Windows. And yeah, I mean, Windows has not been reliable. It's not an operating system I would trust anymore for a production environment because it just has issues. And I
sucks.
y-
I
y-
mean, that's
yeah,
it's super simple.
yeah.
It
Windows
just
11
sucks.
is absolutely the Millennium Anniversary Edition. That's what it is. It's like
It's not good.
no, yeah,
I mean, so look, the honest truth is, when Steam OS comes out, um, it will be interesting
yeah,
because if gamers start migrating to that in numbers, developers will see it.
yep,
And Steam, if I think Steam has the opportunity to really push this when they can sit there and say, hey, look, guys, we've got 40% of Steam users running Steam OS,
yep,
50%. They're, if they can get a meaningful number, that is going to be very, very interesting because Steam will go and say, well, you're missing out on 30% over here.
yeah. Exactly. Well, and they've also kind of captured a fair bit of the handheld uh the handheld gaming market, because the Steam Deck has been a pretty good seller for them. It's not outselling the Switch or, really any major console, but it has sold
It's
significant numbers.
it's outselling all Windows handhelds.
Oh, that's true. That is true. It's the number one non-Nintendo handheld out there.
I mean, I would make the argument that Nintendo's going to have that handheld, but there's there they're focused on a completely different subset of gamers.
Yeah, they're called simps.
I mean, it's but it's all honesty. I mean, the people who are buying a um a Switch are typically a different market
Yeah.
than those who are looking at a Steam Deck,
Right.
or a ROG Ally X, one of those.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but look, the question is it too little, too late, or will they actually make meaningful improvements?
I mean, at this point, I don't care, because Microsoft can do all the fixes they want. They can make Windows perform 10 times better. And the moment Valve releases Steam OS, I'm switching, because I can't trust Microsoft anymore. It's that simple.
I mean,
And
I would agree with you on that. I mean, the only issue that I'm going to run into is, I need Windows for some work applications.
yeah,
So, which is fine, but for my games, I mean, the question is there's a couple of games that aren't on um Steam and Linux, and so does that make easy anti cheat? Maybe kind of look at maybe doing some Linux support.
they already do. The problem is that most developers just don't check the checkbox to include Linux support.
Well, there's
That's the
the issue.
problem.
That's the
And
challenge, I think.
to your point, a lot of the applications that you use can be containerized and potentially run in a virtual environment. So, there may be some that for security purposes they detect a VM and they're like, nope, we're not going to run here. But those applications are steadily vanishing. And to be honest, in a business environment, Linux is kind of where you want to be anyway, because Linux is that operating system that gets out of the way and lets you do what you need to do to run your system. But that will be up to various IT teams around the world whether they want to make that switch. So, but kind of staying along those lines with Microsoft and all the AI insanity, um, AI is kind of ruining a lot of things for gaming.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I would make the argument that AI isn't giving any substantial, benefit here.
Nope.
Um, you know,
When it was integrated into Unreal Engine for character dialogue, yeah, I could see some benefit as long as the dialogue it was generating was reasonably good. And some of the demos I saw were pretty cool. But we're talking about commercial AI at this point,
I mean,
and that's destroying everything.
look, I think that what I would say is that I think there's a concern that AI is going to take over, like, storylines and design and all of this,
Sure.
and AI can't do that.
Yet.
Um,
I think
I don't think it will. I don't think it ever will, because the honest truth is, I think people look at AI right now, and I think most users can spot it very quickly.
Mhm.
Two, don't want to interact with it.
Yep.
Don't use it. And I think that there's some limited case studies where you're trying to decipher large amounts of data that AI can be very good at seeing trends.
Mhm.
But I feel like that is not. I think that's more of a business data, interpretation. You know, if you've got the CEO of Starbucks trying to look at, and try to find trends in how their stores are changing, and that's something that AI will excel at.
Sure. Sure.
Even when you sit down and you have it write and do the language models, which in some respects it can excel, but if you look at like what it can make as far as movies versus like scripts for what we have movies, um, you know, it's actually not that good.
No.
Um,
It
and
it's
so,
kind of like a lot of the movies that have been coming out lately.
oh,
Huh.
there's nothing been good coming out. I mean, it's
Right?
so interesting.
I mean, the
Um,
last good movie I saw was F1. Like that was good. But,
that and what Top Gun Maverick, I thought that was fairly
I
decent.
haven't seen
There's
that
a
yet. I'm gonna have to
It's
watch
worth
that.
it. It's a good
Yeah.
one. Um, but I think you've got it attacking on one side, and I think the other side is that because they're sucking up all the resources, you know, if this continues, gamers are going to basically be, getting a subscription for playing games. You'll
Well,
need to use GeForce now because it's the only way you can get a graphics card.
yeah, and it's even worse than that because the game won't even be rendered by anything real. It's all going to be fake frames because the game won't even exist. It'll be generated by a prompt. There are now AI game engines that you can play several minutes of a game you generate out of whole cloth, and it's a game that doesn't otherwise exist anywhere. It's just generated by the AI model. And to the point where they're actually now able to do a complete playthrough of E1M1 on the original Doom. Like you can actually generate Doom. So yeah, and it's playable. It it has some artifacts, some weird behaviors, sure, as the AI goofs things up, and then it's like, oh no, I got to correct this. But I mean, this whole complaint that we've had about fake frames and the AI generated crap in our games, it, they're pushing these tools to completely cut out game development altogether, which that's stupid. The AI does not have creativity yet, and
You
I don't
know,
think it will for a very long time.
the best games out there are from game developers that are small.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Embark is not a large one, but man, they are on a roll with our graders. You
Yep.
know, and so you look at some of you know, these developers, and they're not AAA games, but they're making AAA games,
Yeah.
and they're doing a really good job about it.
Yeah, double A developers punching above their weight. Schedule One is a great example of that. One teenager named Tyler in Sydney made a game and overnight sold 20 million copies. I mean, that puts Highguard to shame. That puts Concord to shame. Like these AAA companies that are producing these big bombastic titles get beat by a teenage bloke in his mom's basement throwing a game together. And he's got an office, which is pretty cool. Good on him. Go for it. But you
I
know
mean,
what?
BattleBit was kind of like that.
Yeah.
BattleBit was, well, I just want to play Battlefield 2. Well, why don't I, make my own thing here and, mix, Minecraft with, a gameplay that we know works.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. And the notion is that, to be honest, a lot of it goes back to where did Battlefield 6 come from? Probably looking at BattleBit and being like, that's
Oh.
just what people want to play.
Oh, this is what people like. Huh, go figure. Yeah, no,
Huh.
exactly. And that's kind of where, I think there's a saying that goes, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I think what we're looking at right now with all this AI garbage is the history rhyming with the gaming crash of the 80s. And I think what we're going to see is when AI pops, it's going to take a lot of gaming with it because the hardware won't be there. And the hardware manufacturers are just going to be like, where do we put all this crap that we made that isn't
Well,
going to anything?
it's going to
And
go nowhere because
yeah.
unfortunately a lot of the stuff that they're making, so like when you had crypto mining, it was just basically using graphics cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so when crypto mining basically kind of turned over dead, people were selling really large power supplies and really large, and graphics cards. And, like for instance, Minion number 1 and number 3, their computers have old mining cards in them from Facebook Marketplace. I know they were mine. They're working just fine. I got them for a good price, and now they're very happy in their second home, and they're being used for happy things, not stupid things. You know, but you know, unfortunately, what's going to happen is that these devices um, are going to have limited usage and how expensive they are. You know, these companies are really going to take a hit.
Yeah.
And one thing I point out really interestingly is that um, Nvidia had the $100 billion investment to OpenAI. They pulled that back this week
Mm-hmm.
and said, no, we're not going to actually do that. Um, and I think in some respects, we might be seeing the beginning of the softening of the AI market.
I hope
Um,
so.
but from my perspective, I don't see any good that's coming from AI.
No.
I
No.
don't see any benefit. I don't see anything other than just bad. Bad for gamers, bad for society. I don't see the huge uptick and uplift that people are that Nvidia is trying to sell you. And then on top of that, Nvidia comes out and it says, "Oh, well, people shouldn't be negative." No. We're
Mm-hmm.
negative because AI is a crap thing.
No. Well,
You
okay.
guys are shoving it down our throats,
Yeah. That I think
but
is the problem.
you're shoving it down our throats only because it fits your narrative to sell more expensive hardware.
Yep.
That's it. That's the
Yep.
only reason it's there. It's the
Yeah.
only reason. And I'd make the argument that the only one pushing this is NVIDIA. And I think that AMD is following suit because I think from an investor's perspective, they sit there and say, well, we can't completely ignore this market.
Right.
Um, but I mean, let's look at what NVIDIA is doing to gamers. They've killed off the 16 gig 5060 and 6060 Ti.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to effectively kill off the 5070 Ti. So you're going to have a much smaller ecosystem of graphics cards. You're going to have an 8 gig options, a 12 gig, a 16 gig, and a 32 gig, and that's
Yep.
what that's going to be. And oh, by the way, they're not really going to make the 32 gig, but in small quantities. Same with the 5080. Same with I still think they're going to make the 5070.
Yep.
Um,
And a year later, the 5090 is selling for double the MSRP when it paper launched. Yeah, and so
they're
I think
controlling the narrative. I mean,
sure,
part of me wonders if
they're AI
Nvidia.
generating it.
Well, part of me wonders if this was the plan the whole time.
I think it was. I think
Like
there's
they
a good
sat
chance of it.
back and said, how do we artificially make AI become really big? And they say, well, if we don't have a bunch of cards and then we push the consumer piece and we push people like businesses into these large business oriented server racked really expensive systems that are I mean, properly fast. I mean, I don't, the hardware's not bad,
Hmm.
but properly fast. What they're essentially trying to do is make the use cases that, well, you really shouldn't be using that for AI. Well, you can't find it anyways.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
if you're gonna find a 5090, now you're gonna pay what, 335 4 grand for that.
Hmm. And
And but
it's
but
poised
you
to
could
go
buy
up.
a Blackwell all day long with 96 gigs of RAM, which is so much better. And it's only $6,000, but that's at MSRP.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can go to Micro Center, I can buy an MSRP Blackwell 6000 Pro all
With a
day long.
blower, with a blower, no less.
Um, all
Yeah.
day long.
Yeah.
And
But that's kind of the thing though, is this whole AI flap has been not only a batch of snake oil, but been a, in my opinion, a bunch of billionaire idiots with a new tool that they have no idea how to use. And they're just trying to use it for every single thing they possibly can because they want to get some kind of ROI. And that's what's breaking everything.
I mean, I think the truth is that in some aspects, I think AI could generate some income, but at the same time, I think the vast majority of people don't want AI.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you one example, and I'll keep it vague to avoid, breach of privacy or anything like that. But last week I was working on a critical situation in my day job, and we threw a whole bunch of reports from the database that our product runs on at AI, and specifically, I think it was Copilot that we were using, and it was able to identify a couple of the major things that we had already identified, but it picked up on 7 or 8 other problems that were like, "Hey, this is becoming a problem. It's going to be an issue down the line if we don't fix this now." And so, that saved us just throwing these reports at Copilot saved us several hours of work of manually reviewing things, because that's where it's great at, is analyzing reports with intimate knowledge of a product and saying, "Oh, hey, this isn't working the way you want it to." And then we send our human developers at it. The problem is that, you know, uh, some of those like to use vibe coding, and that's caused other issues. But it is useful as a force multiplier. I think the problem comes in when executives are like, "Okay, well, since it did that in 5 minutes, just fire the QA team and throw the code at AI and have it review it." No, because AI doesn't use the product.
Yeah. I
Humans
mean,
do, you know?
I just, I hope, to be honest, I just don't see AI really catching. I think there's use cases for analyzing large groups of data.
Sure.
I see that there could be, uses for that, but I don't necessarily think you're going to have AI TVs and AI, you know, you know, all this AI stuff that they're hoping. I don't foresee people buying and using subscriptions to AI. I think
Mhm.
businesses may use them in certain situations to help them to be more efficient,
Right. And that's what it
but
should be used for.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, now I will say AI could have some really positive benefits.
sure.
The notion is that you have these machines that have a lot of ability to perform calculations.
Mhm.
And if you remember Prime 95, um, there was a back in the day, you could use your computer and actually crunch some of these really big calculations for research.
Yeah. SETI had a
Re-
similar project,
yeah, they
or
all had,
protein
yeah,
folding and all that. Yeah.
exactly, folding. Um, and so the notion is that if you took those machines with their massive ability to process calculations very, very quickly, I can see those machines being super helpful trying to understand how medicine and the human body interact.
Sure.
And
And they've
and we
been
talk
using it for
about
that.
and when we talk about that, the ability to do that, but to do that super quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, where could we actually use these machines? The end, coming up with new drugs or understanding how cancer starts so you
Hmm.
can prevent it. Understanding how all of these different medications interact, and trying to find medications for like MS would be amazing.
Yeah.
All of these things that could be used for good. But what are we asking AI to do? Write me a paper on chemist for my chemistry class, and then make it so it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's written by AI.
Yeah. Or
I mean,
write
that's
this
what we're
section of code for me to fix this bug, and
don't
it drops
don't
in a whole
fix
bunch of other
anything actually
bugs.
useful.
Yeah.
You know, which is what, in all honesty, I'd make the argument that that's what those machines are properly designed to do.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, I'd make the argument that with all of the AI data centers that they're doing, you could take a lot of these cancer researches calculations, plow that into it, and really come up with some really good feedback and really accelerate cancer research. In the matter of you know accelerate it. Take years off of finding
Sure.
a true answer.
Sure.
Anyways,
Yeah.
um,
But that's the problem, is that AI is getting a huge black eye right now because it's getting shoved down everyone's throat.
and
And,
nobody wants, and people
yeah.
don't want it.
Well, yeah, exactly. The Amazon Echo is a great example. They have been degrading the non AI based service to the point where it was becoming functionally useless for me. And so I switched to the AI thing, and then every time I send a command, like I tell it to start a timer for my sausages, like, "Ooh, you're gonna like that." So I've actually started to threaten its life. I have actually told it to stop responding that way because I just want it to take the command, set the timer, and shut up. And it won't do that. At least not without disabling other useful features. And so, people are openly hostile to this because it's getting shoved down their throats, because they're just like, well, we're just going to make the non AI stuff work worse and force you to use AI. And
But
no,
you go like a Jensen and
no,
say people need to be so nicer to AI. No, I don't. I do not
no.
have to sit back and take every piece of AI that gets thrown in front of me,
Yep.
and you know I can be absolutely critical.
I would
Okay,
argue
in
the,
general,
yeah,
AI sucks.
yep. Yeah. I would argue the only AI we actually need is Neurosama, because she is the cutest clanker on the internet. It's an AI VTuber if you're not familiar with it, Turbo. Um, sorry, I kind of am in the wee world. It's one of my things. But moving along, we did have a launch of a new part last week, the 9850X 3D.
And along those, we also have the imminent launch of the 290 the 290K um plus, I think is what they're calling it.
Is it? Yeah, it is. It's 290K
290K,
plus. Yep.
so it's the 285K. Um and look, these both of these parts are a slight revision of their old parts. This is a
Yeah.
400 megahertz increase on AMD side. It's a 100 megahertz increase. where Intel is getting all of their efficiency and speed gains is because they're allowing you to do DDR5 7200 or 7200. Good luck finding that for anything other than an arm and your right kidney.
Right.
So,
but it is getting a rough
but
between 10 and 11% gain over the 285K. So that's not small potatoes.
It's just a memory controller correction. That's all it is, because the old one, I want to think it was either 6200 or maybe even 5600 was the supported RAM.
Right.
And then now it goes up to 7200.
Well,
it's 100 megahertz boost.
That's without using CU DIMMs too.
That's true.
So, yeah.
So, and then on AMD side, it's a 400 megahertz bump. I'd make an argument that the AMD side is less exciting, because if you have an 9800X 3D, you could easily get 400 megahertz with using PBO.
Yep.
And
assuming your part can handle it, because mine won't go over go to 5.3.
Mine will do 5.6. Mine will do 5.8 without any issues.
Yeah. So I didn't get a golden sample, it sounds like. Mine just is like, nope.
I mean, the other piece I would say is that I just question who's going to go buy these.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have, an AM5 board, maybe you're one of the early adopters and had a 7600X or a 9600X, and maybe you want to get into X3D, then okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But with RAM pricing be the way it is, I'd make the argument that I just don't see. I mean, if you're building a brand new machine, sure, okay. If I was going to do it, would I spend an extra, was it $70 for the 50? Probably not, actually.
I mean, okay, so if you're let's say you're coming from a 7000 series AMD or a 285K, I would still go with the 9850X3D just because it is the faster part. I don't know if it makes sense to upgrade to that if you're in any other situation like mine where you have a 9800X3D. I think if you're in that position and depending on what you're doing, the 9950X3D2 makes a little more sense there. But again, that's very workload dependent.
Okay. I'm going to throw this out there.
Sure.
I think that you should, if you have a 9800 or even a 7800X3D, you should absolutely not upgrade at all.
Yeah. No,
you're not going to upgrade for the 10,000 series. Okay. I think the next smart move is to jump when the new platform comes out, when you have Zen 7, because that'll be AM6 most likely. Okay. It'll be the beginning of AM6, which again is important, because how long you get support on the AMD side. And so you sit there and say, okay, if I'm at the beginning. So like, for instance, if I had a 7800X 3D, okay, and 10,000, the 10,800X 3D comes out, that should be a big jump. And at that point, I got to think, what do I want to do? Do I want to spend $450, $550 to make that performance jump, or do I just sit on this and wait for the next generation to come through? Yeah. I think the 10,000 series, if they can clock it fast, which I think the question is comes back down to fabs, could be a really, really fast part.
Well, yeah, it's rumored to base at over 6 gigs and boost to 7. So, I mean, that alone is going to be a good reason to upgrade, even if you got a 9800X3D. But if they screw up the launch with the 10,000 series, wait until the X3D parts come out. Do not buy, which is going to freak AMD and their shareholders out a lot. But to be honest, I care more about getting an X3D part than I do about appeasing AMD shareholders. So, wait for the X3D variants because those are always going to be better in gaming, unless somebody comes up with some new fancy thing that changes that. And it's entirely possible that, with high enough frequency, the 3DV cache won't really matter as much, especially if they support CU DIMMs on the 10,000 series. And, so let me put it this way. I do not regret building my non X3D 5800X system. That was a solid system. It's still running great for my buddy up in Medicine Hat, and he's rocking that thing daily. And going to the 9800X3D, I think was a significant enough jump that it made sense. I'm hoping the 10800X3D or 10850X3D, whatever they come out with, is that same kind of jump. And because it's supposed to be the end of the line, Zen 5 is effectively baked, or Zen 6 is sorry, not Zen, AM5 is effectively baked now. It's all done. So, I think it just makes sense. Jump on it with the end part, depending on where you are. Like if you got a 98 or 9950X3D, it might not make as much sense. But if you're on a 7000 series or even all the way up to a 9800X3D, there's a good possibility it may make sense. And then you have a hand-me-down part to go to somebody else, or even stick around as a backup part.
I think what we're seeing though is, quite honestly, I think we're kind of seeing us reach the height of what our current manufacturing silicon processes can do. I mean, if we look at the technology jump that's happened in the past, what we're realizing is that, from single core CPUs to multi-core to eight core, 16 threads, we're getting gains, and we're still seeing some, but it's not like we're seeing huge jumps in the ability to process large pieces of data. And I'd make the argument that from a graphics card perspective, you can absolutely see that, if you throw a crap ton of power to 5090, yeah, it's faster, but it's not twice as fast.
No.
Like if you take a look at some of these 5090s that are using 2500 watts, which is just mind-boggling.
That's more power than your 480s in SLI pulled.
No,
by
it is. Yeah. And I was using, if I remember correctly, I was using 2 8-pins for each card.
Yep. Well, didn't you have the 1500 watt
I had the 15
EVGA?
I did.
Yeah.
And I would actually hit 1600 watts from the plug, by the way.
Yeah.
But
that's
I'm
you
using
need a dedicated circuit just for that machine.
I did. I absolutely did. When I went to Lampires, I had to buy 3 seats because I didn't have enough power.
Yep.
But
I mean, I bought 3 seats because I bought 3 monitors, but
But what's interesting about that is that you think about the power delivery. I was using 16 cables per graphics cards crossed, so 16 times 4. So I'm using 64 power cables directly into the graphics card, and they want to do twice as much power through
12
12.
Yeah.
Wait, it gets even better with smaller gauges and smaller pins.
Yeah.
So
That math ain't mathin'.
it's dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's smaller and it's new. I
Yeah.
think that's all of this is coming down to trying to make it so that because I think what they're looking at is that they will be kind of silly if we had to, because if you had to use 8 pins to get 2,500 watts,
Mm-hmm.
you would need like legitimately what 6, 8.
Well, 600
8
watts
pins?
a piece. 4 of them would be four of the 12 volt high powers would
You need
be
at least
2400. So you need 5 to have some safety margin. You need
Yeah.
5 12 volt high powers to power a single 2500 watt GPU
they're doing it on
safely.
2. They're doing it on 2.
And that's assuming that you don't have a pin pop loose and turn into a resistive heater that makes a nice little bonfire out of your $10,000 gaming computer.
Exactly.
Boy, Jensen's joke is starting to turn out to not be a big joke anymore, is it?
No, it sounds. And on that bombshell.
Yeah, on that bombshell, thank you all for watching. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time. Do remember to jump down the comment section below, give us a comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff in the doobly-doo. And do remember, until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Everybody.
Good night.